Hi, I'm Andre Lloyd, and I am the International Director of Regeneration International. And before that, I was the President of iPhone Organics International. I'm also a long-term organic farmer. I've been farming organically for more than 50 years. And in the background here, you can see part of my farm. I'm on my farm at the moment where I grow tropical fruits. I have made this recording because, unfortunately for me, the time of your seminar is 3 o'clock in the morning here in tropical Australia. So instead, I put together a slideshow on the importance of what we are doing with agroecological, regenerative, and organic agriculture in terms of climate change. I've titled this one Agroecological, Regenerative, and Organic Agriculture Counters Climate Change, because now climate change is the most important of all the factors in farming. It is affecting all of us all over the world. And I know where you are in East Africa, it's been a major issue, particularly with droughts and then heavy rains. The Horn of Africa, Southern Africa, and across to many other parts of Africa. And it's the same all over the world. What we're seeing now is this increase in extreme events. I know there's a lot of people who are skeptical, but the data shows that we are getting warmer. Last year was the warmest year on record for the planet. It's actually 47 years before there was an average year that was cooler. That's 1976. This year, we're on record to be even hotter. That's what the red line is showing. The yellow line is last year. And what you can see there is progressively we're getting hotter and hotter. But in the last few years, this rate of heat and the extreme climate events that come with it is increasing. And why is this? It's because of our activities. One of the reasons is because of the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This shows you that for 800,000 years, you could see it going up and down, the levels of carbon dioxide. When it was down, that's an ice age. Then we go to a normal period, a warm period, down to an ice age. This is natural climate change, natural variability. We've been doing this for millions of years. But what we can see here is the level of carbon dioxide is just shooting straight up. That's not natural. That is us. That has happened since the Industrial Revolution. And that is due to fossil fuels, but also, just importantly, the clearing of forests and the loss of soil organic matter from farming. All of these have contributed to this increase. And it's getting worse. Since last year, CO2 emissions increased by 3 parts per million. To put that into perspective, in the 8 years since Paris, CO2 emissions had been increasing by 2.87 parts per million. That's the Paris Agreement happened in 2015. In the decade before Paris, it was increasing at 2 parts per million. So what we're seeing here now is a 50% increase in less than a decade since Paris. The rate is going up. All the solutions that governments are talking about are not working. We, are continuing to make this worse. We have a lot of people trying to say that carbon dioxide is not the cause of climate change. It's natural. It's always done that. And you get some scientists who say there's no evidence that carbon dioxide is heating the planet. Well, we have very good evidence. We have 50 years of satellite data from multiple satellites, NASA, the Japanese Space Agency, European space agencies, and they have precisely measured this trapped heat energy. Infrared energy, we can't see it. We feel it. When we go out in the sun and we feel the heat, what we are feeling is infrared. And what they've done is, when they've measured it and they've worked out how much has been trapped, it's 2,091 trillion watts of extra energy has been added to the Earth's atmosphere since 1750. This is the start of the Industrial Revolution. And it amounts to billions of atomic bombs of energy. And I want to use this metaphor to explain all this heat is violently fueling our weather. It fuels all our energy systems. So what it means is droughts are stronger, storms are stronger, floods are stronger because there is more energy. Fires are stronger. And as I want to say, this carbon dioxide has come from fossil fuels, clearing of forests, and from farming since the Industrial Revolution. That's what we've done. We've cleared much of the world's forests. We've lost most of the soil organic matter due to industrial agriculture, not just fossil fuels. And to give you an idea about it, this is a graph from 2003 to this year. And what it's looking at is this extra trapped energy, and it's measured it in Hiroshimas per second. The amount of atomic bombs per second worth of energy going into our weather system. Look at this and understand what is happening and why we have to turn it around. It's not just, yes, it's going to get 1 or 2 degrees warmer on average. It is the extreme weather events, the violent events, and they will continue to get worse while we keep on putting more and more of this energy into the weather system. Consequently, all the research shows that climate-related disasters have surged 5-fold in 50 years, and this rate is now increasing. In the next decade or so, it's going to be even worse again. We have to turn this around. And the way we do this, we have to take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Just ending fossil fuels and adopting renewable energy will not stop catastrophic climate change. That is because carbon dioxide lasts over 1,000 years in the atmosphere. If we just stopped fossil fuels tomorrow, which won't happen, we're actually using more fossil fuels than ever. And if we scaled up renewable energy, just say some miracle that we stop fossil fuels and everything was renewable energy, we will still go into climate change because all that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will continue to trap all that energy. It has to be removed. And governments aren't doing that. And we actually need to remove 28 gigatons. A gigaton is 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year just to stabilize it, to stop it from going up. We actually have to increase it, bring it down. And the best way to do that, plants. Plants remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. So, what is really important also is just removing the carbon dioxide alone is not enough to stop climate change, because the fact is most of the heat has gone into the sea. These are sea temperatures. And sea temperatures, as they warm up, they affect our weather. They're the major driver of climate. And it's getting hotter. This is last year. This is this year. You can see, like air temperature, sea temperatures are increasing. But the difference is that heat will take centuries, hundreds of years for it to go out of the atmosphere, to go out of the ocean. So it will still fuel our weather. So what we need to do is look at not just removing carbon dioxide, but how do we cool the planet? And one of the reasons we're heating the planet is not just carbon dioxide, it is the clearing of forests. The clearing of forests and ecosystems is heating and drying the climate. And this extra heat and energy also causes increases in extreme weather events such as droughts, fires, storms, and floods. We have to end deforestation. And really importantly, we need to regenerate forests and ecosystems to cool the climate. Now, this will give you an example. Most of the deforestation in the world now is occurring in the tropical regions. So particularly in Central Africa, the Congo, Zaire, major areas of forests are being cleared, also in Southeast Asia and in the Amazon, with massive clearing of tropical forests. And what this shows here, this is Sumatra. And there's a difference of 10 degrees, 18 degrees Fahrenheit between the cleared area and the forested area. Here in the Amazon, it's 3 degrees difference. Just remember what we've done is just recently gone 1.5 degrees warmer. We weren't supposed to do that for another 50 years, but we've broken that. 3 degrees is double that. By regenerating these forests, we can bring down the temperature of the planet. We need to stop clearing them and we need to regenerate them. Because forests remove carbon dioxide, they also remove carbon dioxide. It's very important. They absorb the heat and energy through photosynthesis. They shade the ground and they cool the planet through the transpiration of water vapor. So a single tree can transpire hundreds of liters of water a day. And every 100 liters, I've put it in gallons there for people who are familiar with gallons, has a cooling effect equivalent to 2 domestic air conditioners daily. Just think of that. Every tree that we grow is better than 2 air conditioners at cooling our environment. Deforestation results in the land absorbing sunlight that heats the climate. And it's a significant warming, what we call climate forcing. Regenerating forests will cool the planet. And I want to show you this. This is an example of how much we can cool it. This is the United States. And this part of the United States got cleared on colonization when they first went there and, started growing there in the 1700s. In the 1800s, agriculture started to move to the Midwest. They opened this up. As a result, last century, around 1900 up to now, the trees have been growing back here and it's been regenerating. Consequently, while on average the world is 1.5 degrees warmer now, these parts of the United States are 1.5 degrees warmer. This is 1.5 degrees cooler than it was 100 years ago. That shows the power of regenerating our forests and our ecosystems. That is the key for us to cool the climate. So let's talk about how we do it. Well, the way the governments talk about it is they're spending billions and billions of dollars on giving it to corporations for carbon dioxide removal, and they're building these big carbon dioxide removal plants. This is the large-scale one that just opened this year in Iceland. They call it Orca. We have a better technology, and we have a solar-powered life form that removes carbon dioxide for free, and it builds itself. We don't need to spend billions building these plants. And our plant is called a plant. And let's talk about this, because this is really important. You know, plants are the ultimate carbon dioxide removers. When they're growing, they use solar energy. The beautiful thing about our systems is that they're solar powered, the most effective solar powered systems on the planet. And they use solar energy, and they take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, water from the ground, and through, this is called photosynthesis, they put these molecules together and they make glucose. And the byproduct is oxygen. Virtually all the oxygen that we breathe comes through this process. And glucose is the basis of the food system of life. Pretty well every living organism, that includes us, we have in our cells, we have these mitochondria, and they actually burn glucose for us to get energy. But also glucose is used to make all these other molecules like cellulose, wood, leaves. And 95 to 98% of the biomass of a plant comes from water and carbon dioxide using photosynthesis. This is the key molecules of life. They also make all the other sugars that we eat. They change glucose into carbohydrates, so the corn, the maize, rice, wheat, potatoes, flour, yams, all the starches that we eat are made from glucose. And then they can change a carbohydrate into a hydrocarbon. That oils and fats, all the oils and fats we eat come through this process. Similarly, they can add nitrogen, and some cases they add sulfur, and they make amino acids. Now, that's our proteins. That's our DNA, the basis of life. Our hormones all come from this. They all come from this one incredible molecule of life. They put these sugars together, particularly the glucose, in long chains, and they make cellulose, which is wood. All comes from glucose. It's 95% of what you see in a plant. Carbon dioxide, water with solar energy. The really incredible thing about this is when the plants use all this water and carbon dioxide to make their body, they use 70% of it to grow themselves. They put 30% of it in the soil to feed the soil microbiome. This is the area with the greatest biology on the planet. We call it the rhizosphere. It's the area around roots. And the rhizosphere, why it has the most biodiversity is you can see here the exudates here. These are these molecules of life. It's glucose and all the other compounds made from glucose. And the plants put that out to feed all these beneficial fungi and bacteria and cyanobacteria and all these other incredible organisms. And this is an example of it. You see here these threads. These are the hyphae of beneficial fungi. And they put stars there just to show other organisms. And what they're doing is they're building soil. See that? When you look at a good soil, it has that sort of structure. We call that a PED. That's that crumb structure. They are building soil. Soils are built by roots and microorganisms, and that system is fed by all the compounds made from glucose. And this also releases all the nutrients to the plants, makes them available. So this is an example here to explain this process in nature. A little pine tree, and it's photosynthesizing, making glucose, and it goes down and puts, like I said, 30% of what it does, it puts out from its roots. Now, this is a beneficial fungi, the white one here. And you can see where the fungi joins the roots. And what's happening here is this plant is feeding this fungi glucose. The fungi can't make glucose because it doesn't photosynthesize. It's in the dark. So it has to get it secondhand. So in this case, it's getting it from the plant. Now, it's not a parasite. It doesn't want to kill basically bite the hand that feeds it. It doesn't want to kill its host plant, because if it kills its host plant, it doesn't get any more glucose. It wants its host plant to grow. So what it does, it extends the roots of the host plants. This is what, in effect, it does. This is the fungi, the hyphae or mycelium, as we call it, and it's going deep down into the soil, and it's bringing up water. It's bringing up all these nutrients to feed its host plants, and it knows the more nutrients it gives its host plant, the more the host plant grows, the more glucose, because it's giving 30% of its glucose to the fungi, the more it grows, and the deeper it goes into the soil. And the host plant knows the more the fungi grows and deeper it goes in the soil, the more minerals and water it gets to feed. They're looking after each other. We call this mutualism, where it's mutually beneficial. And we also call it synergy. Instead of 1 and 1 equaling 2, 1 and 1 equals 3, 4, 5. 1 and 1 in this case will equal thousands in terms of benefit. And this is the real way nature works. It's not about the competition of the fittest. That's rubbish. There is some competition. But if that was true, if you looked at an ecosystem and you've got this competition of the fittest survive, in the end, you'd only ever have one species in that ecosystem because that's the fittest. It's outcompeted the others. But when we look at ecosystems, over time, we get more and more and more species. They get more and more diverse. Why? Because they're looking after each other. They're feeding each other. They're working together. That's how a good ecosystem works. And that's how our farms must work. So let's look about how we apply this knowledge now into our farming systems. And one of the really important things to remember is this. Remember I said 95% of this is made of glucose. Comes from carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas, and water and sunlight. 95%. So what is happening here is that the photosynthesis in the leaves feeds the roots. Why I've put the concept of managing the 95% here is because industrial agriculture is based on the 5%. They say, oh, you need to use all these chemical artificial fertilizers to feed the plant. And it's all about the 5%. Well, only 5% of this plant's body comes from the soil. That 5% is important. Don't get me wrong. It is very important. We need to get it right. But they forget about the 95%. So what happens if you cut the leaves? Have a look. Each time you cut it down, they're making less glucose in the molecules of life. They have less of this to feed their roots. So to balance themselves, they shed roots. The more we cut the leaves, the less photosynthesis, the less stuff to feed roots, the more they shed roots. Cut it very fine, it shed most of its roots. This is very important. Plants feed from their leaves to feed their roots. That's the 95%. 5% of minerals come from here. So we use that to grow fertility, to produce these molecules of life, to feed the soil microbiome. Now, this is my farm. I'm in the tropics. This is what my farm actually looks like at the moment. I'm currently out slashing this down. This is what I call a cover crop. It's not weeds. And by the way, just for interest, these grasses are all African species. Most of these legumes are African. We've introduced them to Australia because they're really good cover crops. You know, here it's 3 meters tall. It's taller than me on my tractor. That's an enormous amount of organic matter I grow. And that feeds the soil. They are not weeds. It's about how we manage it. This is my place in the dry season after I've cut down the cover crop. This is what I'm actually doing at the moment because we will, the wet season's ending and I cut it down. Now, what has happened is that all those compounds that have been put out by the roots, put all those molecules of life into the soil, fed the soil microbiome, and made this topsoil. When I took over the farm, this is what I had. Less than 1% organic matter. This soil was so hard, I had to plant with a crowbar. Now I've got an average of 6% soil organic matter, and it's rich in minerals. Have a look here. I've increased the fertility. Nitrogen up from 46 to 123. Calcium has gone right up. Magnesium. All my nutrients are up because the biology has brought this up. And I showed you the way the fungi goes deep down, gets all these minerals, brings them up. What I want to show you here is the deep-rooted legumes. Part of the reason I just want to talk about this, by letting the taller we let this grow, the more molecules of life we do, but the deeper the roots get. So, this is the example here. You let it grow tall and the roots go deep. Just think about all that going deep, and it opens up the soil. When I cut the roots, I cut the leaves, I cut the leaves, it sheds all these roots. All that organic matter now starts to break down and feeds the soil microbiome, puts all those carbon compounds into the soil and increases the fertility. Look at this. Whenever you look at a plant, whatever we say, as above, so below. If you look at this, it's 3 meters high. The roots go 3 meters deep. So I'm building topsoil. So what you're seeing here, this is the roots of one of the legumes. It's going into the subsoil now. And what you can see around there are the exudates feeding the rhizosphere. This is feeding the soil microbiome. And what is happening here is we're deepening the soil. This subsoil now is being enriched into this very, very fertile topsoil. And this has been done not by bringing on lots and lots of chemicals. It's been done by using the biology, by growing cover crops. In the beginning, I brought in a few of these nutrients to kickstart the system, but now I don't need any. The system creates the fertility. I'm a commercial farmer. I produce tons of fruit, tons and tons of fruit every year, and I'm taking it off the farm. But I'm not exporting nutrients. I am increasing fertility with this system. The other really important one I want to show is, I suppose, really importantly is this. I increased the soil organic matter from less than 1% to 6% in 11 years. Okay, I went from that, which is less than 1%, to that in 11 years. What that means when we talk about climate change is that we get higher yields in climate extremes. And I want to explain that to you. So this is an example here. This is a long-term field trial. And it's a comparison between organic and conventional. And this one is being supervised by organic farmers, and this has been supervised by agronomists from the local university. They're using best practice conventional, fertilizers and pesticides. This is good practice organic farmers. This one has been increasing soil organic matter every year, like I have as an organic farmer. It rains at planting and there's minimal damage. This will go on to make a good crop. This will not. It will barely make a crop, if anything. And most of this valuable soil has run off because of the lack of soil organic matter. So to explain that, to go deeper into this is actually another long-term field trial. In fact, this is the Rodale Institute here. And you can see the organic soil with the organic matter. We put it in the water and it is stable. What is actually happening? It's absorbing all the water. It's not collapsing and running away. This is the conventional soil, and it just collapses. It's got no structure. There's nothing holding it together. It just erodes and goes in all our creeks and rivers and muddies them, and then goes out into the sea and causes dead zones, causes algal blooms. Here the water is clear. Where this is really important is in terms of how organic matter can increase our water use efficiency. So this is absorbing water. The other one is losing it. So if you've got less than 1%, you can hold about 80,000 litres in the first 30 centimetres per hectare in the soil. Most of the soils I've seen in Africa, Asia, and Australia have 1% or less. So, if it rains, you can capture about 160 litres. The rest runs off usually with the soil. You go up to 6%. And I put 6% there to show you that that's what I've done. Lots of people have done this. Many people have done better than this. You can capture around 100,000 litres, just under 100,000, a megalitre per hectare. Just absolutely perfect. You don't need irrigation systems or whatever. You've got all the water you need at the root zone. It doesn't get better and more efficient than this. What is really important here is when we're talking about resilience, is that our systems get much higher yields in drought. Now, this is the Rodale Institute. This is a 40-year farming systems trial, scientific trial, and they found that the regenerative organic corn had 31% higher yields than industrial agriculture in droughts. This is a really good picture. What you're seeing here, it's the same variety of corn, same soil. The difference is the management, the treatment. This has been grown organically. This has been grown by standard industrial agriculture. I've got agronomists from the local university supervising this. This is supposed to be the high yield, but it collapses in drought simply because we've built up soil organic matter, has captured the rain from the year before. It's stored it. It's there. It doesn't know it has a drought. This is suffering because it does not have the organic matter. It cannot capture the water. And this is really important because the fact is most of the world's agriculture is rain-fed and will remain that way. So increasing our soil organic matter is the most important way to ensure that we're drought-proof, but also ensure the stability of soils when we got the heavy rainfall like we started in the beginning. So now I just want to look at some of the innovative ways that we can do this, increase soil organic matter, but also what it means for climate change. So we call this pasture cropping or no kill, no till. The other word for this is strip cropping. strip tillage. And what this farmer has done, Niels Olsen, a very good friend of mine, is he just redesigned his equipment so it just gently strips. It doesn't plow the whole field. And what he's done here first, before he goes in, he grazes it down, or you can mulch it down. Because remember I showed you the picture, if you cut the leaves really short, it sheds all its roots. Then by just properly just strip tilling in here, you don't need to spray and kill all this. Open it up, aerate it. You can plant your crop into it. Here, this is his what he calls his cow salad. He does this in winter where he lives because he gets winter rainfall. These are winter growing plants. You can grow it up, and all multiple species, improves the soil, and in this case he grazes his animals on it, and he's increased his stocking rate. But what is really important here, he's the first farmer in the world to be paid under a government system for increasing soil organic matter, soil carbon. And he first year is paid it for 11.2 metric tons, and then next year increased it to 13 metric tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. This is verified under a very strict system. Now, if we were to extrapolate that across agricultural lands, this sort of system, that's 55 gigatons per year. Remember in the beginning I said we need to remove more than 28 gigatons. Well, this shows you with this system we can. This is another very good system for increasing soil organic matter by Dr. David Johnson and his wife Sue Johnson, New Mexico State University. And this is a composting system where you don't have to turn it. They call it a bioreactor. I want to show you this because you can do it at any scale. So all you need is a little bit of weld mesh, a little bit of shade cloth or variations of it. You build it out of bamboo if you wanted to, weave it. There's lots of ways you can do this. And this compost is probably the highest number of microorganisms of any compost I've seen. In his field trials, he sequestered 37.7 metric tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. Now, if we were to extrapolate that across agricultural lands, that's 184 gigatons. Remember, our goal is to get better than 28. You know, that is so many more times what we need to do. And this can be done on any size farm. Really importantly, this one, just like the one I showed you before, we get higher yield. So this is growing cotton. This is the conventional one, using 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre in the US. After 1.5 years of using bean, building up the soil microbes, the soil microbiome to make all the nutrients available, look at the size. 3 times the size, the amount of cotton balls, you know, and this costs nothing. Farmers usually borrow money to do this. There's a lot of money per acre. This costs, it's just an opportunity cost to make it. This one, I think, is one of the most important because they're growing on just under a hectare. Listen, you know, about around just a bit more than 2 acres. And they're growing vegetables once again in a no-till system. They're growing it in compost and mulch. They're not tilling. They increased their soil organic matter from 2.4% they started with to about 7.8%. I extrapolated that out, and what that means, if we extrapolate it against arable and permanent croplands, we could sequester 179 gigatons. That's more than 5 times what we need to do. Where this is important, I just want to say is that this system here, they employ 8 people now, and they earn around $400,000 US. on the less than a hectare, to show that, people say small farmers can't be viable. You can be very viable and very profitable if you get the system right. Really importantly, the majority of the world's farmers have 2 hectares or less. Where this system is so important, I just want to say it's certified organic. It's an agroecological certified organic veggie system. If we scale these systems up, we make these farms incredibly productive. We get very good income. We take families out of poverty, and we reverse climate change. This is a model that we need to expand and adapt to all our countries. It would work so well in East Africa. And then this is the other really important thing. Most of the world's lands, agricultural lands, aren't vegetables or orchards or grains, and aren't cropping. They are rangelands. That's the case in Kenya, your neighbors, Tanzania, all through Africa. Most of Africa is grazing rather than cropping. And in part because most of these areas aren't suitable for cropping. And unfortunately, most of them are very, very degraded. This one's Texas. This is South Africa in the Karoo, and this is Zimbabwe. And under the current mismanagement, you get the land is overgrazed. It heats up. What happens is you lose all the soil organic matter. That light color means all the topsoil's gone. It's gone up into the atmosphere. A lot of our, like I said, our carbon dioxide has gone up into the atmosphere because of this mismanagement. And also these systems, because they have low organic matter, don't absorb water. Most of it runs off with the topsoil. We start regenerating it, changing the grazing system and regenerating it. We take the carbon dioxide out, put it into the soil, and the water also, we capture that, because I showed you the difference between 1% organic matter and 6%. And it's the same in these systems. So I wanted to show you the 2 in Africa, for instance, that we change the way we graze and bring in regenerative grazing systems like holistic management. We can regenerate these systems, but really importantly, we can take down a lot of carbon dioxide. This is an example. I showed you Zimbabwe, Alan Savory's property. That's what it was like. He had 100 cattle doing damage. He started to regenerate it, changing the grazing. I took this picture last year. He's bringing it up now to 1,000 cattle. What we see here is this incredible mosaic of vegetation types, ecosystem types. Not only is he getting up to 1,000 cattle, he actually has a herd of elephants. That's an elephant hide there, and plus all this other wildlife as well. You can, in these systems, we don't have to have the fights, as we know, unfortunately, we're seeing in parts of Kenya, Tanzania, between pastoralists and farmers. We get it right, we can do both. And that's what is happening here. We can, instead of having dead mechanical reductionist philosophy of destroying ecosystems and societies with toxic industrial agriculture, we can regenerate them with love and care to make highly productive, complex, intelligent, biodiverse, connected living webs of mutually cooperating species. And we do it by maximizing photosynthesis. Look at that. Look at all that area is covered. It's getting all that sunlight, taking in all that carbon dioxide, also the water. And consequently, these are some of the best systems for removing carbon dioxide, as well as, I just want to say, cooling the land as well. Instead of being hot and baked with bare ground, it is full of trees, it is cooler. this is an example of scientific literature when we start regenerating these rangelands with properly managed regenerative organic grazing systems. And this one showed around 29,000 metric tons, just under 29,000 kilograms, just under 30 metric tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. If we were to extrapolate that by rangelands, that's just under 100 gigatons, more than 3 times what we need to do just by changing the way we graze on our rangelands. And to get rid of the notion that we need to start killing cows and killing animals for climate change, we don't need to kill them. We need to change the way we manage them. That's the key. And we can regenerate the climate and regenerate the ecosystems. I just want to show you how important that is. The other really important thing is this cools the whole region. That heats it up. We're cooling the planet and we're removing carbon dioxide with these systems. The really good news here is what I want to show you, we need to take out more than 28 gigatons per year. Just 28 gigatons just to stabilize it. We need to do more. And the really good thing here is that, why this is possible. We don't need to change all of agriculture. We just need to do a small proportion of best practice agroecological, regenerative, and organic systems. And the reason I want to put these three together is we're like-minded systems. There shouldn't be any fight amongst us, and we shouldn't worry about what name is better. We are all on the same page here, and we should be able to use the words interchangeably. The agroecological people and organic people and regenerative people, we are part of the same great movement. And working together, we only need to do a small proportion. And where this is important, we just need to get the people we call the early adopters. And that's usually about 16% of our population. In our case, if we got 5% of global agricultural lands to use the bean compost, that's 9.2 gigatons. 5% of the smallholder farms using the singing frogs system. 10% of grasslands under regenerative grazing. 10% of agricultural lands under pasture croppings. We could do 34 gigatons per year. That's more than our 28. That means we are now, with just these small amounts of change, we are reversing climate change. We are taking more carbon dioxide out than we are emitting. And the beautiful thing about all these ones is that we're also cooling the planet. So I want to just get that across. We only need to transition a small proportion. Like I said, early adopters are 16% of the population. We can work with half of that. That's really achievable. And we can sequester enough carbon dioxide to reverse climate change and restore the global climate, have negative emissions and bring the world back to pre-industrial revolutions in a few decades, and really importantly, produce higher yields of healthy food with no toxic chemicals. And the beautiful thing about this, it's shovel ready. Everything I showed you exists, built by farmers. They're out there being done now. We don't need to waste billions on research and, all these big industrial factories and to draw down carbon dioxide. Just with a small amount of resources, we can scale it up because all we need is education and training. That's low cost. We can do this. And lastly, I just want to end on this. This is a book that is coming out next month that I wrote with my friend, the late Ronnie Cummings, and Bandana has kindly written a foreword on it. Also, Alan Savory. has written a nice comment as well. And this explains all of this in detail. So I just want to say thank you very much. And I just want to wish you the best. Hope you have a good seminar, and I hope you've gained something from this, and most importantly, look about how you can start applying it in Kenya. So thank you.